If you are so weak that you need a happy ending, this is not the story for you. Greetings, this is Darth Vader here, and I would be honored if you would join me as we explore how my fate and the fate of the entire galaxy would be different if the Sith had trained me first. Let us go back to that fateful day on Tatooine where we are all trying to escape and Darth Maul is chasing us. Qui-Gon yells, "Anakin, drop!" But instead of Darth Maul trying to run me over, he stops in my position. He looks at me. He can sense my great potential in the Force. He attempts to kidnap me, and that is when Qui-Gon jumps in and attempts to rescue me. However, because this fight is taking place on flat ground, Qui-Gon is much too old to keep up with Darth Maul's stamina. He is cut down. Obi-Wan jumps into the fray and is amped up by a temporary rage boost, but he is too young and inexperienced, and a lack of holes for him to fall in, and a lack of plot-induced stupidity on Darth Maul's part results in Obi-Wan being cut down as well. Darth Maul looks over me. He towers over me and says with an intimidating voice, "The Jedi are weak. Do you want to be weak like them, or do you want to be strong like me?" He decides to take me as his secret apprentice. This results in Naboo falling to the Separatists, and Padme Amidala gets executed, and the Separatists take over the planet. Because I am a young child full of insecurities and trauma, Darth Maul is able to easily manipulate me. However, he's got a problem. The rule of two forbids him to have a secret apprentice while his master lives. So instead of taking me around the galaxy, he confines me to Tatooine, making me feel less free, but he tells me to get my training by killing various species on the planet and basically taking it over bit by bit. So I find Jawas, and I genocide them. I find bounty hunters, I chop them into stew. I find sand people, I kill them all. The men, the women, and the children. They are animals, and I slaughter them like the animals they are. When it is time for me to increase the challenge level, Darth Maul sends me to take over all of the crime syndicates on the planet, which means picking a fight with the Hutts, the Toydarians, the slave drivers, and all of the bounty hunters from across the galaxy that they would hire to come after me. But because of my great potential and strength in the Force, though some are a minor challenge, they all fall before my blade, and I steal all of the money off of their bodies. I take the credits home to my mother, and I present them to her. I buy her freedom, and I expect her to be proud of me because I am now powerful. But she looks at me as though I were a complete stranger and says, "You are not the son that I raised. The son I raised valued freedom. Yes, you're free, but you are using your freedom to enslave others. Don't become the very thing you swore to destroy, son." This causes me to reflect about my life. This gives me some pause and causes me to think. But I don't have that much time to think because Darth Maul arrives and he gives me a special assignment. He says after all of these years, the slow Jedi have finally sent a Jedi Master to come investigate the deaths of Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, and I am to track down that Jedi Master, fight him, and kill him, which I do. They send Kit Fisto by himself, and I turn him into fried calamari in about 30 seconds. But because I am so powerful in the Force at this point, and because I have killed a Jedi Master, it sends shockwaves through the Force that even Palpatine, all the way on Coruscant, can sense. He can now tell through probing into my mind across the galaxy and probing into Darth Maul's mind that he has a secret apprentice. Instead of him confronting us directly, he wants to test our strength. So he calls the Jedi Council in for a meeting. He puts on his friendly face and he tells them that he has located the assassin that's been killing Jedi all this time. And he tells them our exact coordinates. So the Jedi Council send 4 of their members to Tatooine to confront us. They send Ki-Adi-Mundi, Plo Koon, Agen Kolar, and Saesi Tiin against Maul and myself, and we are able to easily wash them. However, we have little time to celebrate because Palpatine's ship has just arrived. He jumps out of his shuttle, looks at both of us, and says in a very dark and ominous voice, "There can only be 2, a master and an apprentice, one to wield the power and the other to crave it. but I see two before me, and this cannot be. It is the rule of two, not the rule of three. He pulls out his lightsaber, lunges at us, and we have the fight of the century. Because of how strong I am in the Force, because of how well Maul has trained me as a swordsman, and because of how much stronger Maul has gotten through having me as a sparring partner, we are actually able to last 3 times as long as Maul and Savage were able to last against the Emperor in the Disney continuity, and I am actually able to get several good hits in on the Emperor, but ultimately we are still no match for him, and Darth Maul ends up sliced in half, lying on the ground, bleeding to death. There is no one to save him. Palpatine then forcefully takes me as his brand new apprentice and tells me that I can learn even greater power than what Maul taught me. He takes me back to Coruscant and pulls some strings to get me elected as the senator representing Tatooine, and then as a result of that, because I have access to Senate resources, I have a lot more finances at my disposal, and I have a lot more resources to go and hunt down anybody that I deem a threat. However, because I am now more visible and more notorious, this leads all of the friends of the bounty hunters I've killed on Tatooine to recognize me, and they all put out a galactic-wide bounty of 1,000,000 credits on my head, which basically gives me more target practice because now everyone's coming at me, giving me more opportunities to fight and strengthen myself in the Force. The Clone Wars happens as per normal. However, since the Jedi Order has been so depleted of its High Council by myself in earlier years, they have far fewer generals to lead the war, and the Jedi basically just get slaughtered. It's a complete meat grinder. So by the time Order 66 happens, Operation Nightfall is an absolute piece of cake because most of the Masters are already dead and the war was already turning against them anyway. Mace Windu is left alone to fight in the Jedi Temple, and because of how strong I am in the Force, he's a piece of cake. I kick his ass. Even his Form 7 Vapad is not enough to save him from me, because the moment I realize that he can match me in swordplay, I just start strangling him to death with the Force, and that's it. GG, he's dead. There's nothing he can do. Then I approach the younglings, and this is where everything changes for a brief moment. I draw my lightsaber, about to cut them down, when Qui-Gon's ghost appears before me, and he tells me, "Think about your mother. Would your mother be proud of the boy she sees today?" That is when I turn off my lightsaber. I look at the younglings, and I see in them myself, children who were forced into a situation that they did not ask for, doing the best they can. I turn off my lightsaber, and I leave the room, sparing the youngling's life. Palpatine can sense this through the Force, and he is absolutely horrified that his apprentice is showing mercy, and much more, he's showing mercy to Jedi children. This shocks and angers him to no belief, and he ends up hiring Jango Fett to go kill my mother because he wants all connection to the light side of the Force severed within me. I sense this and have a nightmare for it getting killed, and I wake up out of my dream. I go to Tatooine to see Jango Fett pointing a gun at her head, and Jango Fett is about to pull the trigger. I command him to stop, but it's too late. He explodes her head with a blaster bolt. Right before I eviscerate every organ in his body, I demand to know who hired him to do this. He tells me it was Palpatine, and I am closer to the dark side than ever. I am filled with the utmost rage of the universe. I walk into Palpatine's office, eyes glowing red. He looks at me and says, "Your mother is dead. Good. Now your final connection to the..." And he cannot talk. I start force choking him. He reaches for his lightsaber. I start force choking his wrist so he can't move. I crush the bones in his wrist. I crush his skull inward. He is dead. I am the new emperor of the universe. And one of my first acts as emperor, I sense that Yoga is on Dagobah, and I have the Death Star blow it up just to take care of that nasty old frog man. The younglings that I spared become my own private inquisitorium, sort of like the Jinsarai or the Imperial Knights. I settle down on Tatooine with my sweet hot girlfriend Asajj Ventress, and I am not fully committed to the dark side, because I don't like what Palpatine did to me, but at the same time I view the light side as too weak. So I sort of become an anti-hero, like Deadpool or Lobo. I do good, I do evil, it's whatever suits my mood, as long as whatever happens, my will is law. And that is what would happen if the Sith found me first. Let me know what you think in the comments below.